Welcome into part number 13 of Unknown Word, and our 12th episode in 2026 already. Yeah, I said 12. On the show today, we're talking about how our state legislative delegation voted on the various bills that we've been discussing during the session. Also, we have some last-minute housekeeping items that have cropped up in the last approximately 10 days. I'm your host, Ian Hound. On the center of the screen here, we have all the various bills that we've been following. Both forms of open enrollment, SB 101 was tabled back in April, for example. Before we talk about those, we do have a couple of housekeeping updates, like I alluded to at the top here. And that includes an update on the New Hampshire Blue Envelope program, which has just recently gone into practice, and also two updates on the bills that were in committee of conference the last time I recorded one of these shows. First off, we have some housekeeping info on the New Hampshire Blue Envelope program. For our new viewers and followers, I mentioned New Hampshire RSA 265:3-C relative to the Blue Envelope program here in New Hampshire during Unknown Word part number 2. Upon reflection, however, I realized that we made some key omissions during that program. So in an attempt to correct that, here's a couple of notes on the Blue Envelope program and what it's actually supposed to be. The program was supposed to be available as of January 1st, 2026. The envelopes and guidelines were not ready at that time. After approximately 5 months of delays, the program is now live as of last Monday, May the 26th, 2026. Also, it occurred to me that I only referenced the requisite RSA number in part number 2. I didn't actually touch upon what the program's supposed to be. I have included a link to RSA 265:3-C on the right side of the screen, an article from May the 26th, and it appeared in the Keene Sentinel in reference to the program now being live, and also a link all the way back to Unknown Word part number 2, January 2026, which was the first mention of the program in this series. A couple of key points at the bottom. Enrollment, it's a voluntary program, so enrollment is voluntary. The enrollment form is available now on the New Hampshire DMV website. Questions about the program should be directed to your local New Hampshire DMV office. For us here at HCTV, our closest would be Nashua, for example. I'm not going to read all of this, but feel free to pause it as you need to. But first slide is the very thorough description of what RSA 265:3-C actually says. And then we have points 4 and 5 of that same RSA, and both of those are from the New Hampshire General Court website. And then we have a sample of what the blue envelope would actually look like. And this is taken from the Canterbury Police Department Facebook page. And we have the box on the left side include the driver's name, emergency contact name and phone number, level of communication capability, sensory considerations, preferred calming support, instruction to the driver to the top right, and then instructions for the law enforcement officer, both in the verbal and visual respect. And that's on the lower left and right, and appears to be inverted as I look at this picture correctly. Now we get on to end of last week on Friday in regard to the two bills we've been following in regard to the Committee of Conference situation, the first of which is yet another open enrollment bill. Committee of Conference was for HB 751 FN was initially convened on May the 18th, 2026, and then resumed on both May 26th and 28th of last week. What the committee actually did with the bill, they decided to maintain the current open enrollment law and make it so that towns would have to comply with it. Any town that was non-compliant or refused to comply would then be penalized. And the report regarding from the Committee of Conference is in the link on the lower left. In regard to House Bill 1215, Grayson's Law, as the first section was referenced as, Committee of Conference date May 26, 2026. House of Representatives on the committee voted to non-concur with the Senate. During the hearing, there was an attempt to add in a last-minute amendment under the numerical guise of 2026-1611S, and it would have included wording from House Bill 1653. At the time of the slide and time of recording, no report had been filed, and New Hampshire Republicans effectively killed the bill by trying to attach a non-germane amendment to the bill and then proceeding to take no action on it in regard to filing a Committee of Conference report by last Thursday, close of business. And those who have watched Of His Own Words all the way through by this point know I'm not shy about what I have to say on these matters. So here we go. In reference to House Bill 751 FN, open enrollment number 2, I think the whole concept of what the Committee of Conference did is absolutely disgraceful. New Hampshire Republicans' determination to force through and retain current open enrollment law in the wrong direction for public schools in New Hampshire. Everyone should be alarmed by the fact that the proposed bill penalizes districts and municipalities that do not comply. Now, moving on. In regard to House Bill 1215, unfortunately, the attempt to saddle House Bill 1215 with a last-minute amendment, 2026-1611S, is right up the alley of New Hampshire Republicans. This killed the bill. the New Hampshire Republicans do not believe people with disabilities in our state should get the support they need to function on a daily basis. And also, to the first point I made, I would like to add that it's also the inaction on the Committee of Conference by not filing the report by last Thursday close of business also killed the bill. As I've said a couple of times during the course of the show, we are in an election year. Consider this when you're voting for state legislators this year. Now we're on to the main show. As we mentioned on one of the previous occasions, here's the list of our current general court delegation to Concord from Hudson. On the left side, we have all 8 names listed in the New Hampshire House, New Hampshire Senate on the right side, and then we get into what do I mean when I've been babbling about division vote versus roll call vote versus voice vote? A little bit of Elmer Fudd going on here, so bear with me. Division vote. Legislators each had their vote recorded individually, but without sharing their name. The roll call vote. Legislators vote one by one, and their votes are recorded with their names attached to their given vote. Usually yay, nay, or present. Voice vote, and you'll see a theme here in a moment, over the next few minutes. Legislators vote out loud saying yay or nay in chorus. In this case, the louder side wins. A record of how the legislator voted is not retained, but the fate of the bill is. And I pulled this from the Citizen Count New Hampshire legislature page, and the link is at the bottom of the screen for those who would wish to go back and follow through and see that for themselves. So, how did our state delegation vote for the bills that we've been following, you ask? Good question. In reference to Senate Bill 101 FN in regard to open enrollment, which is a twin of House Bill 751, which we referenced in the discussion of the Committee of Conference report a moment ago. The New Hampshire House tabled the legislation by division vote on April the 23rd, so unfortunately there's no legislator-specific voting information available unless you go back to the April 23rd YouTube from the New Hampshire House YouTube. The Senate, however, and State Senator Sharon Carson voted in favor of ought to pass as amended on SB 101. In regard to Senate Bill 670 FNA, which Lewis and I touched on briefly in part number 7, we do not have a record of how the given legislator voted. Both chambers voted ought to pass as amended on a voice vote. And my question to you on this is, where's the accountability? Because as I go over the next couple of slides, you will see a theme here that in many of the examples, the vote was done by a voice vote. So the only way to find how the individuals, to find any acknowledgement of how the legislator voted can be found on YouTube, but on the general court website, there is no entry whatsoever. Where's the accountability? Augmented assistive communication technology, right? House Bill 1215, which we just referenced in the committee conference segment a little bit earlier in the show. Again, initially both chambers voted ought to pass as amended on a voice vote. House Bill 1215 was later killed by inaction in the non-concur vote of the committee of conference. Again, I ask you for now the at least second time, or third time, excuse me, where's the accountability here? They voice vote on all these bills, but there's no way to find a legislator by legislator record of how each of them voted on this bill. House Bill 1249 in regard to medical devices and prescription delivery, or medical devices to aid in prescription delivery. The New Hampshire House voted ought to pass as amended upon this bill by voice vote. New Hampshire Senate voted to interim study it, which in effect killed it for the session. Or soft killed it for the session, excuse me. Yet again, I ask you, where's the accountability? If they are voting on these pieces of legislation and not taking responsibility for how they are voting. Now we get to one of the original legislative cornerstones of this program, and that is State Representative Lily Fawson's House Bill 1316 relative to data privacy and a direct challenge to the 2025 National Autism Registry proposal. Unfortunately, the bill was classified as expired in the New Hampshire House before any vote took place. As I have said in part number 6 when I was joined by Sarah Trzynski, New Hampshire Republicans refused to vote on this before the midnight deadline on March the 13th. House Bill 1316 never saw a vote in either of the chambers of the New Hampshire legislature because of that. I referenced, and I'm not going to get into it here, but I referenced in greater detail what House Bill 1316 actually intended to do in part 2 when I was joined by the bill's lead sponsor, State Representative Lily Foss of Manchester, and Dr. Louis Aspetto, Executive Director of ABLE New Hampshire, in January of this year. It was also talked about again in part number 3, when on that particular afternoon I was joined by State Representative Heath Howard and ABLE New Hampshire Policy Director Kristen Evans. We got into the backstory about it when I was joined by fellow advocate Shauna Hallberg in part number 4, also in February of this year. In part number 5, I gave a status update of where things stood leading into what turned out to be a 2-day marathon legislative session that got downright very childish at points and resulted in anything a lot of common sense bills like House Bill 1316 and 1593, of which we'll refer to later on, ending up expiring with no vote being taken because the New Hampshire House Republicans decided to play games, legislative games during those 2 days, and the reactions of which were given by myself and Sarah Trzynski in part number 6, which we in fact recorded midday on March the 13th, so just after these details were known. House Bill 1337, yet again another cornerstone of the Autism Council repeal bill, which was another cornerstone of the program so far to date. And we have the first and only roll call vote, which we touched upon the definition of at the top of the show. Representatives Dumont, Kenny, Nalachi, Prout, Ullery, Weary, Rice, Bohem, 8 for 8, all voted for the repeal, and it stood. That's what the OTP stands for at the top left. When the Senate got their turn on a voice vote, and first, quick note of clarification there. When the New Hampshire Autism Council repeal bill reached the New Hampshire Senate, they amended the bill to basically delay the start of the repeal until December of 2027. However, that doesn't change the fact that the council has in fact gotten its feet back under it and has been making strides toward addressing the concerns of the time. And that's to keep in mind that in regard to the bill itself, it was merely a repeal with no replacement, no reform alternate option put onto the table. With the New Hampshire Senate, however, there's no record of how Senator Carson voted associated to her name, because they voted ought to pass as amended by a voice vote instead. See Part 12. And see Part 12 in terms of what I said in regard to the amended version. And again, voice vote. Where's the accountability? Where's the vote actually being attributed to the given legislature? Now we get to House Bill 1406. Both houses of the New Hampshire legislature voted on a voice vote, but this is the first one the second one that we're talking about, where the houses differed on opinion. The New Hampshire House voted House Bill 1406, which is safeguards in healthcare decision-making and record-keeping, that it should be passed and amended. The Senate, on a voice vote, decided that it was inexpedient to legislate because it was too vague. Translation, they were concerned about the possible retaliation and repercussions that the federal government would bring upon New Hampshire for attempting to regulate artificial intelligence in any way. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is where we are. We have top-down dictation that we're supposed to let artificial intelligence run rampant. As I stated in Part 12, I am for implementation of new technology. I am for artificial intelligence, but done in a responsible manner with safeguards and clear guardrails in place. In regard to the accountability, where's the accountability here? By voice voting, there's no way for us to tell how any of which side our 8 state representatives came down on, or how State Senator Carson actually voted in regard to killing the bill. House Bill 1563 FN-L in regard to supportive education funding. This is the second Band-Aid bill that I referred to in part number 12. Again, both chambers voice voted. In the case of the New Hampshire House, it was ought to pass as amended. In the New Hampshire Senate, they voted simply to pass it. And again, I ask you, if voice voting means that there is no record on how the individual legislator actually votes on the given measure, where's the accountability? We're into an election year. Consider that when making your decisions this September, this November. House Bill 1593 in regard to Section 504 protections expired before a New Hampshire House vote was allowed to take place. Again, as I said with House Bill 1316, the New Hampshire House Republicans refused to allow a vote on this bill before midnight on March the 13th, which was the legislative deadline prior to crossover day. And again, I'm not going to get too deep into this because I touched upon it in much more detail. It's actually a typo. Touched on this one in much more detail in part 5 and 6. And then in watching the state legislative session from start now to finish for one cycle, it fundamentally bothers me to see fundamental common sense measures like House Bill 1316 in regard to autism data privacy, House Bill 1406, and House Bill 1593 basically getting tossed to one side, in effect, because they are common sense measures, but the current House and Senate Republican majorities in the state legislature are more worried about what the federal government is going to think if we have common sense fundamental protection for certain portions of our population than actually doing their jobs. Yes, I know in the case of House Bill 1316 and House Bill 1593, they never actually saw a New Hampshire House vote because the House adjourned before any vote could take place. I mean, what are we doing? Number one. And number two, what's it going to take to get these over the finish line? That's part of the reason why I said in my comment in part number 12 that I can't get overly excited on two bills. Well, they fixed the issue. House Senate Bill 670 for one, and House Bill 1563 for the other. They're an attempt to fix the issues that they identify. They're merely Band-Aid measures. They're not gonna fix those issues overnight. I want to like those bills, but I can't exactly be happy about basically Band-Aid measures when we got other common sense bills that basically didn't stand a chance the entire session, although it was presented as, oh, we could actually get them by. When, like I said at the top, in regard to House Bill 1590, and in regard to House Bill 1215, for example, the New Hampshire Republicans simply don't care. Honestly, what are we doing? That is why in the last couple of segments, I have been trying to get people to think. Actually think about whom you're voting for when the time comes later this year. Where's the accountability? During the legislative session, we referenced or discussed 9 proposed bills. So, to break that down, that's 18 possible final vote opportunities, 9 in the New Hampshire House, 9 in the New Hampshire Senate. Except 7 of those bills were actually voted upon by either the New Hampshire House or New Hampshire Senate. So of that original 18, that 18 drops down to 14 possible times. One of the things that I have noted over the session, and this is one of the things that bugs me about the current makeup, was of those 14 bills, 13 of the 14 possible times where the bill's fate was ultimately decided, 13 of 14 times, the chamber elected to both voice vote, which means there is no way we could find how our specific state representatives, and there's 8 of them, and or State Senator Carson voted on a given measure, because those records are not retained. If you look on the General Court website, those records just merely show that it's a voice vote, and that's it. The one exception to that 13 of 14 number is in regard to the New Hampshire Autism Council repeal bill, where the New Hampshire House did in fact request a roll call vote upon that, which we highlighted earlier in the program. And amongst the gamesmanship that we saw during the legislative session, you notice how I said 9 bills that I referenced or discussed during the session. 18 possible votes. Well, 1316, House Bill 1316, House Bill 1593 were never voted upon. Technically, were never voted upon, which is why that 9 becomes a 7 and that 18 becomes 14. Both House Bill 1316 and 1593 expired before there was a vote allowed upon them, because no action was taken upon them prior to the crossover day deadline. Now, as we wrap up the show today, we have, check us out on Blue Sky, handle of his own word, all one word, .bluesky.social. We have show update, YouTube link, New Hampshire legislative update and response to the national misrepresentation and overall national discussion about autism. Facebook, of his own word, we have show update and YouTube links, New Hampshire legislative update and response as applicable, in response to the current administration's determination to misrepresent what autism actually is and the overall discussion on the national level. We're also on the Hudson Community TV website under the search keyword of his own words, and that will take you to all 12 of the co-produced videos and flash shows that are available at the moment. Well, 12 at the time of recording. This makes number 13. And we are on Linktree and all and well, that is L and in Lincoln, I and in ice cream, N and in November, K and in Kevin, T and in Tom, R and in Robert, dot E and in Edward, E and in elephant, slash of his own word, and we have linked to all the various socials, the YouTube, HDTV website, and also our email address. Okay, yes, email might be a figment of 2010, but we do in fact have one. Also, I have taken the opportunity to put some bonus Easter eggs up on the Linktree page as well. We are available on Substack, substack.com, handle @of his own word. We have much the same as Blue Sky and Facebook, show updates, YouTube links, the New Hampshire legislative updates and responses, both in short and long form updates, and then for many of the reaction statements that I've shared over the course of the year so far can be found. And this one is more in the long form blog update style. And okay, yes, we do have a little bit of reaction to the national misrepresentation as well. Finally, we do have our own YouTube channel, so we're not just on the HTTV website, we're also on YouTube, @of his own word-NH. We have show videos from HTTV, as well as self-made bonus and best of videos available also. And right now we've got a collection of parts 1 through 6 in one video, parts 7, 8, and 9 in the second video, and the best of New Hampshire legislative reaction from myself and my guest in parts 2, 3, 4, and I want to say 6, but don't quote me on that. And we also have State Representative Heath Howard's speech from an Able New Hampshire Award event that he and I were both at in January of this year in Concord. And then we have the link to all those videos that I referenced a moment ago, which in 12 shows, so 16 different links on the YouTube video count in all. And this will make number 17 when it's available. Then we have behind the camera, we've got Mike Johnson, Director of Community Media, Matt Guerrero, one of the production coordinators, Mike Pylon, Matt's counterpart in terms of production coordinator. Hi, Mike. And then we have the list of those who have joined me to date so far. We have my co-producer Alejandro Urita, who joined me last November for part number 1. Then we fast forward to the aforementioned State Representative Foss and Dr. Louis Espeto, who joined me for part 2 in January of this year. State Representative Heath Howard and Able New Hampshire Policy Director Kristen Evans joined me in February of this year. Shauna Hallberg also joined me in February of this year. Sarah Trzynski joined me in March. Dr. Louis Espeto rejoined me in March, and we'll have an announcement on part 14 on here in just a moment. So we have some final thoughts for the show. Check us out online, Blue Sky, Facebook, HTTV website, Linktree, Substack, and on our YouTube. Stay tuned for part number 14. Drum roll if you please. Come on. Drum roll, please. Now, a quick peel back the curtain for part number 14. I'll be joined by Able New Hampshire community organizer Sarah Georgian to discuss what in Able New Hampshire, and also have a discussion and preview of their next big event, which is the Disability Pride Parade and Festival coming up on July the 18th at the New Hampshire State House. So really looking forward to this. And quick bit of fun fact here. Sarah's going to be the third member of the Able New Hampshire staff to join me on Of His Own Word. And it'll be the fourth time that we've welcomed a representative from Able New Hampshire onto the program. So that'll be coming up in a couple weeks. And stay tuned for part 14. Also, hopefully over that next couple weeks, we'll get confirmation on a show that I really think y'all will find very interesting coming up very soon here. I'm not going to say too much just yet because it's still a work in progress, but we'll have a big announcement coming up soon on not just part 14, but part 15 also. And hard to believe that we're closing out show number 12 for 2026 already. 13 overall. And wherever you're watching us, whichever platform you're watching this on, thanks for watching. Good afternoon. Welcome into Of His Own Word, part number 14. And on today's show, we're getting away from my favorite subject of the New Hampshire legislature, because they're into their recess at this point. And starting with today's program, we're going to be pivoting to showcase some of our like-minded allies and community partners. On this afternoon's show, I've got Sarah Georgian, community organizer from Able New Hampshire, and we're going to be delving into what is Able New Hampshire, and also talking about a rather large event you'll have coming up next month. Yeah. So, quick bit of background here. I'm host and co-producer Ian Hounds. This is the 14th show we've had overall in the series, and 13th for the year. And Sarah is the community organizer with Able New Hampshire, also the third member of their team to join our program. And quick bit of background, Sarah joined Dr. Lewis Espeto and I at a community outreach event in late March in Concord.
Yeah.
So with that, Sarah, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself here?
So it's funny enough, the same way I actually got into Able is actually kind of like a lot of the same reasons why Able actually was started in the first place. Mm-hmm. So I actually met Lewis when I was in the leadership series at UNH. An amazing program that they have there, and I learned a lot about myself and my own disability. I do encourage people to take the time to actually really participate in that into the leadership series, because it literally changed my life, and it actually brought me into Able. Mm-hmm. So at that rally that that we actually met to was one of our class projects. So we were talking. My team was on child education, and so We had planned to join ABLE and Moms Rising when it came to the rally that they were going to have at the State House for for, I believe it was called Stop Special, at Stop Special rally, I believe. And it was amazing. And we were there. Everyone was there just talking about like the importance of equal education and the importance of having a true education for kids with disabilities. And they asked me to lead the charge into the State House, and I was like, okay, yeah, why not? Sounds like fun. And from there, that's how I literally met Lewis and how I fell into ABLE, which was really, it was a great way to start my year.
Yeah, that sounds very impressive. And how did ABLE New Hampshire actually get started, if you happen to know?
Yeah, so from what I learned, ABLE New Hampshire, so I've only been with ABLE for a year, so I'm still learning a lot about ABLE, but from what I learned, it was parents and like-minded people that came out of the UNH Leadership Series who wanted to continue the work that they were doing in leadership. If anyone knows about anything about UNH Leadership, it is a program where people with disabilities of all kinds and all sorts are able to come together and really create a community that is rooted in just understanding, rooted in education of not only of our own disabilities, but of others, understanding each other's stories, and really really learning how to go out in the community, educate people, and also stand up and use our own activism to change policies. And so that's how it formed, and that's how we got ABLE New Hampshire today.
Yeah, and I'll just make a quick side note, given that we're just off the back of the Special Olympics New Hampshire Summer Games this last weekend, as a matter of fact. And I've had the privilege of attending it as a spectator 2 years in a row now. And it goes beyond just what the other Sarah and company are doing with the leadership. It's all the way through their community, all the way through the campus.
Oh yeah, and most definitely.
Everybody very welcoming and
oh yeah, I have
very definitely a great thing to say.
Oh yeah, I've lived in New Hampshire my whole life. I have a disability called dyslexia, so it's a learning disability. And growing up with two immigrant parents, we don't have a word in our languages for our learning disability.
Sure.
We don't have a word for really a disability. And if we do have a word, it is not the most positive word. And a lot of people in my community that is disabled, we get shunned away. So like growing up here and having two parents who are immigrants and them also not knowing how to navigate the disability system, a lot of the times I've felt very alone, very misunderstood, or not understood at all. But it wasn't until I've been in ABLE, it wasn't until I was part of ABLE for me to actually feel like I'm being seen, I'm being heard, that like the things that I've gone through, the things that I'm still going through with a disability, and the challenges that I face every day, like I'm with a group of people who understand and also at the same time help me and teach me how to overcome all these obstacles. So like I 1000% agree when it comes to it is the most warm, welcoming, most sweet and honest and just amazing group of people when it comes to that disability community, especially here in New Hampshire.
Oh, for sure.
We have a wonderful, wonderful community.
And that's one thing that struck me just over the last year at this point, having stepped into the spotlight myself. It's not just in the people that I've met, but the fact that we have quite a lot in common.
Yeah.
And that those that I have spoken with, some of which have joined me on the show, we're all in agreement with what the direction ought to be. Yet we also see that there's a lot of work to be done too.
Yes, and most definitely.
Case in point, the most recent legislative session of 9, I believe I said on a previous program, 9 separate bills, 7 of which were voted upon, 3 of which passed. The only 2 that I consider were relative wins were ones that merely Band-Aid a bigger problem, Band-Aid an existing problem.
Yeah, most definitely.
And to that end, we've got work to do still.
Oh yeah, and that's why I truly am very proud to be part of this ABLE team, because.
And I think this may touch on my next question of what you all actually do.
Yeah, no, it really does. Because that's why I'm really proud to be part of this ABLE team, because I do see the work that has to be done, and I do see the members who are not scared to do the work. Like when it comes to ABLE, what we do, how I explain it is that we give people a safe space to use their voice and to use their voice to fight for not only themselves, but for everyone in our community. ABLE is a place where, as a member, you can come in when it comes to, and you can join different task force that we have. And you will start and hit the ground running that same day that you are in a meeting. So as soon as you join as a member, we are let me backtrack. We are a advocacy disability organization. So we believe that everyone has the right to advocate for not only from themselves, but for other people. And also learn how to advocate as well. So at ABLE, we just give people the space and the tools to do that. One of my favorite groups really is like the housing and also the ACT group. I love our rainbow group. Like, it's just an amazing place where people can come. They see that there's a problem here in their hometown, or whether it's their hometown or in Manchester period, or New Hampshire period, and they really take the time to take the time and say, this is what's wrong. Let's educate people.
Oh, for sure.
Like, it is truly, utterly amazing to see. And when you're seeing it, it is our members that are creating these tasks. Like, it is our members that are creating these trainings. It is our members that are creating these lunch and learns. It is our members that are literally creating the change that we want to see, because they want to see it. It's our members that are up at the State House that are talking, and it's our members that are in their local level discussing about transportation and discussing how things are not okay within where they live, because accessibility is an important thing. It is our members that are literally in the forefront of all of it, and it's such a great thing to see.
And certainly drawing attention to a lot of the issues that have been brought to light. And of course, I'll make only one mention of it during today's program, because it's not what I was intending on, but certainly when the whole Nashwood School District discussion came up in the spring, that got a lot of attention from not just in the city, but around the state within our community. And good reason, too.
Yes, and most definitely. That right there is a proud moment. And I could definitely say that's a proud moment, not only for ABLE, but I think it should be a proud moment for everyone in the disability community, period. You see at work people coming together and standing up for what is right. That right there is powerful.
And goodness knows I did my share of phone calls around it.
Of course.
Reaching out to allies and champions, Shauna Hallberg from the Dover area, now I suppose former state representative Howard, and many others.
Oh yeah, it is. It's a whole it is a whole thing that as members that they do, whether it's calling, emailing, sending out letters, showing up. It is
Getting others to understand what's going on too. Yeah, exactly.
What, and not even just like they are educating, but they are bringing people along with them. So it's not just one person that is standing there. It is one person and their friend and their friend and their friend. Like it is, and their family member. Like it is a whole community that literally shows up, and it's really great to see because you won't see just one.
Oh, for sure. Okay, so now we get to the lighter-hearted portion of the discussion, and what inspired the Disability Pride Parade and Festival that y'all are having next month?
I can't say what inspired it at the beginning because unfortunately I was not there. But if I had to guess, it would have to be it would honestly, it would have to just be the people in our community. Like I love when we have parades in Manchester. I love when I live really, really close to Elm Street, so I could always see the parades from literally like from my bedroom window. And it's always amazing to see like the community, like just Manchester coming out and just there enjoying a parade. And honestly, when it came, like what I have already witnessed and seen with the Disability Pride Parade, it is the same feeling. Like it is amazing to see people of all walks of life coming to Concord and showing how proud they are, because we are more than just our disabilities.
For sure.
That's like one small part of us that the world just sees and kind of makes it bigger. But when you are in that space and you are walking with with everyone, it is such an amazing thing to feel and to even witness. So honestly, I would definitely have to say, my answer would have to say, like, what inspired the parade is definitely the people in the community. It's definitely the people who came out of leadership. It's definitely the people who are literally who are fighting for disability rights every single day. It is a way for us to say, hey, we are here. We are more than our disabilities. We are seen and we are proud to be who we are.
Oh, very definitely. And to touch on a point that I had raised back at the top of the program, that's part of what inspired me to not just come out to an event like that on July the 18th. It's what inspired me to go show my support for our town's Special Olympics program, not just last year, but also again over this last weekend at Durham, to know that, yes, as I've admitted on previous programs, I am like many of them, but in equal part, I also have their back. And I think with having a platform like this, it's important to practice what I'm preaching in front of this camera.
Oh, no, most definitely. It is. It's truly important, just as a community, that we are standing together and we are showing our support. Regardless if you have a family member or if you have a disability yourself, it is truly important that we all come together to support each other. It is truly important for everyone to truly support the disability community, because we are part of every type of community, whether people like it or not. We are everywhere. We are.
Oh, for sure.
We come in different shapes, sizes. We come in different races. We come in different forms, and regardless of why we look like each other or we don't look like each other, it is important for us to stand up and show up. Showing that support, it only strengthens the community, but also strengthens the outside community. It strengthens our town. It strengthens our cities. It strengthens our country when we do show up. For each other. And
so, as we look ahead to this year's event in a couple weeks, what goal objective do y'all have? What do you want the takeaway to be from it?
Oh, I have a few. So mine,
Sure.
personally for me, my objective, me just being there, one is for fun. I feel like, especially with like everything that's been going on in our world, we deserve some fun. We deserve some laughter. We deserve to let our hair down and just enjoy each other's company. I hope that everyone also takes a lot more education along with them, different ways to get involved. I hope that they find different, we have a whole bunch of different organizations that are going to be tabling there as well. So I hope that everyone is able to literally go to each table, get information about things that are around us. I'm hoping that people really get involved, more people get involved in what's going on, whether it's like something that's in their in their hometown or it's much bigger. I'm hoping that everyone, when it comes to just the march itself, I really do hope that everyone has this sense of pride, and I really hope that everyone feels seen and feels heard and just has a great day. Like, that is honestly my goal.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. It's always great to like mix a little education but with some fun, you know? Like, that's what makes education more exciting, is when you can mix it with some fun.
Yeah, and I know we were talking a little bit before we started rolling the cameras this afternoon, and part of the one of the things that motivates me and prompted me to step into the spotlight myself is it's not just been about me. Yes, I was diagnosed on the autism spectrum in 2011, as I've said in a couple of these programs. It's not just about me. It never was. It was also equal parts about some of my best friends from high school.
Yeah.
Are either very much like me or more so in a needier sense.
Yeah.
I'm doing it for them as well. Because something we've realized over the last 12, 18 months has been, okay, we're all in the same boat, but of our little group, I'm one of the more articulate ones. So it made sense for me to take up the mantle.
But it also, I hope you also know like what an example you are setting. Not like an example not only for like the disability community, but like for everyone, because doing this is difficult. Like,
oh, for sure.
Not to like
some of the subject areas are not lighthearted.
Exactly.
Let's put it that way.
This whole thing is difficult for anyone to be like, I'm gonna go on a TV show today. Like, people are gonna be like, that's nerve-wracking all in itself. But then like to have the guts to literally say, I'm going to have a TV show in my hometown talking about disabilities, highlighting not only the parts that we need to get right when it comes to disability, but also highlighting like the goodness of disability as well. Like, it takes a strong person to do something like this. And
for sure.
And then for you, with your own disability at the same time, how many people in our community are being like, wow, like, if he can do it, I can do it too. Like, you are setting an example. You are creating a pathway for people who are in our community to be like, we can do more, let's do more. We can do a lot more than what society says that we can do.
Oh, for sure.
That's because, and the way to show it, I can click on my TV right now and I can pull it up. I can pull up your YouTube links. I can pull it up, and that right there is showing.
Oh yeah, we are on YouTube, and I'll touch upon that a little bit later in the program.
Yeah, and that just shows. It shows right there. There truly is no boundaries for a person with disabilities, it literally is how the world allows us to access.
And I guess in a way, we said all that to segue into the next question of what do we believe is going to make the difference having this event in the current environment we're in an environment where the federal government seems to have a problem with people with disabilities, quite frankly, and we hear it every day, every other day, every week.
It shows them that we're not going to stop.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it is so easy to give up, but it shows them, even with this event, even with everything that ABLE does, period, with our members and just as staff members, it shows lawmakers we're not going to stop and we're not going to take it easy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we are not going to allow people to constantly and currently bring us down.
Oh, for sure.
And with that, we stand up every day. And with that, even with this event, yes, it is an event that is rooted in like education and rooted in being seen, but it also is a symbol like we are here.
Mm-hmm.
We will continue to be here. We will continue to have our event here. We will continue to be represented here in the State House, whether you like it or not, and whether you listen or not. One day, you are going to listen, and one day things will change, and we will be here to see it.
And that's just it. And like we were talking about before we got started this afternoon, into what inspired this program. Okay, yeah, I made 2 speeches in Concord last year about the subject, but it occurred to me that I needed to have a platform to reach more than just the people that go to those events.
Mm-hmm.
And get people to understand what is really going on, because I feel like if you take the National Registry, and we'll come full circle on that here in a minute, with the National Autism Registry last spring when it was proposed, that was one thing you weren't hearing. What were the ramifications going to be?
Yeah.
What was the risk behind it?
Mm-hmm.
And in those speeches, that's what I attempted to address, both in the potential real-time risk and also acknowledging that those ignorant of history are at risk of repeating it, if I may be so polite here.
Yeah, no, I had a chance. So with the UNH Leadership Series, they do towards the end, you're able to like take a tour of the of the State House, and you're able to like talk to legislators. One of them that I was able to talk to, he was talking about the Autism Council and all this stuff, and how like he really he's really learning more about the disability community, because now he is having to take care of his family member who also has a disability, and their parents can't take care of them anymore. And so like he was really wanting to listen. So I took the opportunity, and I was talking, and we were talking, exchanging things back and forth. And one of the things that I told him, like one of the things that kind of got like that light bulb to switch, was asking the question, well, did you ever ask her what she wanted?
And not just talking with you, but other like-minded allies in our community that I've had the opportunity to meet and work with here. That's one question that we've tried to get people to take away from the conversation. If you truly want to help us, if you truly want to not just be an ally, but make this state, town, country better for all of us, actually talk to us and ask us,
what do we want?
What do we need?
Yeah.
What are we lacking?
How can we help? How can we make this better? What are we doing that we're not seeing?
Exactly.
And that right there is when that's like when I asked him, like the light bulb went off. He now like took a minute to sit back and was like, You're right. No, I don't think any of us have ever asked. And I told him, and I get it. When you have a family member who has lived with a disability their whole life, sometimes as family, we are so concerned about how everything else is going to fall in their life. We are so concerned about, like, what if they get sick, or what if we can't, what if our parents can't take care of them? What's going to happen next? What if, like, what happens when they want to get married? What happens if they're gonna age out and go into an adult program? What's going to happen? What's going to happen? How do we? But one of the things that we, as family, that we tend to forget is asking what they want. Do they want to be married? Do they want to have a relationship? Do they want to have a job? Do they want to learn how to use public transportation so it's easier for them? Do they want independence?
Sure.
We have, like, sometimes as family members, we get so caught up in the concerns that we forget that they are human and that they have a beautiful life to live, and we don't realize that we are stifling that life sometimes.
Yeah,
So
and that's fair. I mean, granted, I take a bigger picture view of it when I'm talking with the aforementioned friend of mine from high school, for example, and deep down, fundamentally speaking, particularly in the environment we're in right now, it could be anywhere from just hearing them out while they're venting about something to reminding them that, honestly, they're not alone right now. And I feel that's
Oh yeah, and that's
one
why
of the big reasons that I started doing this in the first place,
I would
is
encourage.
to serve as a reminder to our community that we're not alone.
No,
We have each other, and that's
I would
something quite extraordinary, I dare say.
I would encourage, like, I would encourage everyone, whether you're a public figure or not, whether you're a politician or not, whether you're a teacher, a bus driver, if you're just you work at the mom and pop shops, if you ask what they want. You want to know more, you want to know how to ask them, because it is a very simple question, and anyone in our disability community will literally give you the answer what they're looking for.
Oh, for sure.
Like, they're not gonna tell you no lie. They're gonna tell you what they want, and it is up to us as a community whole. It's up to us as a community as a whole for us to listen to each other, understand that we are part of this community, this human community. We are part of this New Hampshire community. We are part of this great state, and our voices do count. So if you want to know what we think about certain laws, ask. If you want to know how we think about living conditions and accessibility within each town we have here in New Hampshire, ask.
And depending on which corner of the state,
it's gonna be a long answer.
It very much varies.
Yeah, it's gonna be quite an answer on that one.
Town.
Oh yeah.
I certainly do hand it to your hometown of Manchester, what I've seen with Nashua, and what I've seen up through Concord in terms of accessibility of certain places, a lot of places. They have done a lot of work, say what you will about it.
I can definitely say right now, even in Manchester, there's this lovely lady who shows up to the alderman meetings every week, and she tells her story about how it is so hard and the accessibility within our city, and how even for herself, where she needs to go to the YMCA and she needs to do her swim classes because it helps with her physical therapy. Like, just that alone, the way her determination, and not only her determination for herself, but to bring other people within this, talking about how parking is inaccessible, our sidewalks are inaccessible, bringing these issues to the forefront in real time, not only for our aldermen to hear, But now we have people in our community who are hearing this. And when they hear her story and when they hear about what's going on, they're just like, okay, this is a real problem because this truly can be any of us.
All right, so before we continue, before I make the sin of omission here, Able New Hampshire 2026 Disability Pride Parade and Festival is going to be at the State House in Concord on Saturday, July the 18th. The festival portion will be from 10 in the morning to 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and the parade will be at 11. Again, I'll yield to you, Sarah, if you want to throw anything else in here on details.
No.
Or
I honestly, just come have fun with us. Come hear what we have lined up. We have some speeches lined up from some of I believe from some of our young leaders within our communities. We have, like I said, different organizations that will be tabling there as well. So lots of information for the community to take home with. It is definitely going to be a great day. It is going to be a fun and high energy type of day. So come with all the fun, come how you are, come excited, come with signs, come with flags, come with it all.
And I feel like an event like this, and part of the reason I also went up to Durham last weekend, an event like this, it's not only about the fun, it's also about the friendships that we make along the way.
Oh, yeah.
It's about that community element like you've talked about.
Oh, yeah. That's exactly why I love the community that I have been blessed to be a part of, and get to know. Like, these people are some of the nicest people I've ever met in my life. They have lifted me up in times of self-doubt, and they have definitely corrected me in ways where I can only get better. So.
Oh, and to that purpose, and you bring it up, I've learned quite a bit too. And, having done 14 of these shows, and that being said, I've had the privilege of working with a who's who of our like-minded allies and community, including Kristen Evans, who's the policy director at ABLE. We got talking about the legislative process back in February of this year. A good friend of ours and the fearless leader of the group, Dr. Louis Espeto, and he's reminded me on more than one occasion, he and I have had an opportunity to do 2 of these programs together. One in January, previewing the legislative session, and we were joined by fellow Manchester native Lily Foss, as a matter of fact, on that afternoon. And then in March, right around the time we were together for that outreach event, Louis and I had an opportunity to actually explain to people what the Autism Council actually does, what they actually are, because that was an underlying theme all the way through the legislative session. And that was actually the first guest that I've had on for a second time, and I told him that day, which already that's kind of surreal in itself. And then one of my bigger surprises has been being able to actually sit in on an advocacy meeting with Louis, Shauna Hallberg, Chase Eagleson over at Developmental Disabilities, and Congresswoman Maggie Goodlander, as a matter of fact. And not to make too much of a spoiler alert here, I will have an announcement about that fairly soon, because we're trying to get her on the program also. There's a better picture, an actual picture of Louis and I from part number 7 back in March. And then when Kristen joined the program in February, that's myself, Kristen, and
Heath Howard.
candidate for Congress, Heath Howard, as of Friday.
As of Friday, yep.
I was actually up there and joined him and Sarah for that.
Oh, proud. That's a proud moment.
And a full circle moment too, because Heath Howard's been one of the ones in our community that was, dare I say it, not really pushing me to speak up, but nudging me along when I was soul searching last spring about it.
Oh, yeah.
He was one of the ones that realized that, one, he and I were not that different, but two, we needed that additional voice at the table. We needed that additional person to step into the spotlight and not just acknowledge who they are, but acknowledge why it matters.
Yeah. No, he has become a good friend ever since I have stepped into this new pathway of my life and disability. So he
for sure.
Yeah, he has been a huge confidant, and he has been a good friend, really.
And I will even confess that I have not just sought counsel from Alejandro, my co-producer, who I mentioned at the top, but also our good friend Lewis as well, on many occasions. Even former State Representative Howard, too. I've sought counsel from him on multiple occasions also, not just about state legislative stuff, but getting his sense on the national discussion also when it's come up. Hey, there we go. There's myself, Lewis, and your fellow Manchester stateswoman, Representative Foss. And that was the first time Lewis and I were on the program together, and little did I know that it was going to turn into a whole storyline thread for the program where, we talked about the beginning of the legislative session on that program, but then it's been an underlying theme from January all the way till a couple of weeks ago when the session wrapped up. Which kind of brings us to why we're here today.
Yeah, like it's
beginning to pivot focus on some of the groups and organizations that are doing very valuable work behind the scenes, I dare say. So, a couple of housekeeping things as we close out today's show. There has been a final update in regard to House Bill 751, and it is actually good news, which we'll touch on here in a moment. Check out the socials and social media and YouTube. We'll touch upon that here in a moment also. First, we'll go with the legislative update one more time, I swear. On June 4th, the New Hampshire Senate voted by voice vote to table the second open enrollment bill of the session, which I consider that to be a win. However, as I've said in the last couple of programs, with the amount of times they were using a voice vote, where is the actual accountability? Because something I've learned in putting these programs together, when they're voice voting on it, you don't actually get to see how State Senator Carson voted on something.
Exactly.
Any of the 8 state representatives that represent us here in Hudson, you don't see how they actually vote.
Max,
the lack of accountability I consider to be the problem.
No, I agree. Definitely should.
Overall, good news. So, yay for that.
Yeah. No, so besides working for ABLE as a community organizer, I'm also a school board member in Manchester for Ward 3, and open enrollment has been an ugly monster to definitely
Oh, sure.
fight.
Oh, for sure.
It's
For
an
sure.
ugly monster to fight, and honestly, I would love not to hear anything about open enrollment for the next 2 years.
I don't know if we're going to be that lucky or not, but
I know. I can always hope and pray.
I will echo the sentiment that here's hoping we don't have to hear the word again for at least the next cycle anyhow.
That's true.
Let's be realistic. That being said, we do have a more serious note that I'd be remiss not to bring up on the program, since it's kind of the cornerstone of why that started in the first place. Back on June the 4th, it was brought to everyone's attention, both in articles in USA Today and CNN and others, that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and the United States Department of Health and Human Services are attempting to access our medical records once again to find a cause for autism and to cure it. It is things like this is exactly why we've still got to be vigilant.
Yes.
It is things like this that I still find quite problematic as to what we're still fighting, what we're still up against. Mm-hmm. And honestly, if I might be so bold, it is time for them to get some new material.
I
Good
agree.
Lord.
I agree.
So, not to bring things down too much, but after I learned of this, I felt it would be irresponsible not to touch upon it.
I feel the same. Honestly, I feel like as our American tax dollars can go towards something way better than trying to quote unquote find a cure for something that
And
as human, like, it is not our
yeah, you don't necessarily need to need to find the word, Sarah. I have, as Lewis well knows, I have been over it very thoroughly at this point.
No, we could be doing so much more, and we need to be doing so much more, because this, I'm sorry, but this is a waste of our money. That's a waste of our resources. That's a waste of everything. What we can be doing, that money could be going towards resources, and could be going towards our education, that could be helping and making sure that our kids who are on the autism spectrum, whether they're verbal or nonverbal, they're getting the important therapies that they need within school, one-on-one. They're getting all the things like they can get, so that they are so that we are setting them up to be independent humans.
Oh, for sure. And while all of that is certainly quite important, it's not just the tangible side of it.
Yeah.
It's not just the tangible side of the discussion. Are they getting what they need? Mm-hmm. It also
is the ideology around it, too.
It's the ideology behind it, for sure. Mm-hmm. And it also takes a toll on those who are on the spectrum, within the demographic.
Yeah.
And although I keep stopping shy of saying specifically who, some of my best friends are very much like me in that regard. They aren't as insightful, they aren't quite as philosophical as I am when they hear stuff like this. Mm-hmm. Hearing stuff like this legitimately scares them, and with good reason.
Yeah, because I have one of my persons who's near and dear to my heart is my godson, and he is autistic, nonverbal. Jordan is the smartest kid I have
for sure
ever met, and I have worked with many kids within in Manchester, I have a mentoring program. I have worked with so many kids of all ages. Jordan is one of the smartest kids, and it sounds a little bit like I'm being biased, but no, he is truly and utterly one of the smartest kids I have ever just observed and met and got to know. This, like, as a kid, I'm watching. When I watch Jordan, just him being him, happy as a clam, just being his own 10-year-old self, the way that I see how he solves his own problems, the way that I see him communicate with other people, the way that I literally see this young boy, regardless if he can speak or not, he is the most communicative, most demanding, most like bossy kid I have ever like met in my life. And I don't understand why anyone would want to change that, because like the way that he for example, like my sister, when she moved into a new home, like the way that he would observe everything, the way that he is planning out, I call him my little jailbreaker, because the way that he's over here observing like his little, all the exits in the house, he is observing everybody to see who's watching, the way that he is, doing his little things to make sure that, oh, I am not being seen, but I'm still in your eye vision, but I know I'm not being seen. And as soon as that man gets a plan in his head, oh, you try to stop that boy, hilarious. What? No, he is so sweet, so kind, but so smart. And a part that I do hate about what goes on is that even though he could be the smartest kid in the world, it will always be overshadowed to the fact that he's autistic. And that right there pains me.
That's problematic in it. That is problematic in itself.
Because that boy is smart and he knows how to get what he wants.
Because, and it's both refreshing and funny, but not funny that you bring this up. Sarah Czerninsky, another good friend of mine for doing the show, her and I sat down for roughly an hour.
I love her.
Back in March, and we touched on that. We spent goodness, it had to have been a good 20 or 30 minutes musing upon that exact fact. That those on the spectrum, okay, yes, they're on the spectrum.
What?
But so what? It also means that they bring something unique to the table, each in their own way.
I mean, our greatest mind in history. Our greatest mind in history.
I was today years old when I found out it was not just him. It's there's a couple of others, including very well-known United States gymnast Simone Biles.
Yep. I mean, Albert Einstein.
The very thing.
He couldn't read past elementary school level. That man could not read for the lick of him, and yet he is known as the greatest mind in history.
Oh, for sure.
He also, if I believe.
If in doubt, if in doubt, we can fact check and I'll correct it later. But go ahead.
There was another, there was another, I forget where it was, but there was like this. I forgot where. I think it was like a study, but like even when like with him, like they even as he was getting older, like tried to also determine like what kind of disabilities he had, because yes, we knew that he had a learning disability, but even at that time they didn't really call it a learning disability, but just the fact that he couldn't read, he was a little bit illiterate, and the fact that he also was, I believe, autistic as well, but was not giving the full scope. But it's just the fact that we have like this man who has these disabilities, but in history is known as the greatest mind. Oh, for sure. Like, and just saying. And no one was looking for a cure for him. Just saying.
Exactly.
No one was looking for a cure for him. I'm just saying.
And as I've touched on a couple of times just today alone, two of my best friends from high school, very similar to myself. Okay, a little, they're not quite as eloquent as I am. Sure. But that also, it makes my,
Doesn't make them feel great.
it scares them and it makes my blood boil, quite honestly.
And no one should ever live in this world scared.
To see things like this coming back up yet again.
Yeah, I agree, because no one should ever feel like they are, to me, when I hear a cure, like that, to me makes it sound like they're a mistake. Or that
eugenics.
Like, yeah.
I was trying hard
Like,
not to go there, but
it makes it sound like
we gotta call it what it is.
Yeah, it makes it sound like they are that they are a mistake. That there is something wrong with them that must be fixed. That there is no place for them because until they are fixed. It makes it sound like they are wrong in every human way form possible. It puts people in a dark and scary place where
definitely.
they should never have to be in. We are all different in many different ways.
And go ahead and those watching the program, go ahead and judge me for what I'm about to say, but I am unapologetic in the fact that particularly over the last year, I have gone to show my support for our town's Special Olympics program on now 4 separate occasions. And I'm not sorry.
No, honestly, the town should be rallying around that. The town should be making it a big thing, because that is, I mean, we do it for our football teams, we do it for our high school teams. We should be doing the same exact thing when it comes to Special Olympics. It should be something that our whole town, our whole state rallies around.
Oh, for sure. Right here in Hudson, and both Mike, Director of Community Media, and Matt can attest to, we do a lot in terms of rallying around our school department and athletic programs, particularly at the high school level. That being said, my question to everyone in this audience is, why aren't we giving the Special Olympics programs in our towns that same
it's a missed opportunity as well, because it is a missed opportunity as well, because if we really get serious about it, the Special Olympics is a huge organization. It goes from local to regional to now national level. Okay, ESPN literally broadcasts the Special Olympics at a national level every year when it comes up.
And they are in Minnesota this very week coming up.
If we really thought about it seriously enough, and if we really knew how even the people in our disability community who are participating in Special Olympics, if we continued and rallied around them and continued our support and show them and literally help them get to a national level, they are now representing us, New Hampshire.
Oh, for sure.
They are representing New Hampshire. Not only we have represented our state not only on a scholastic level with our kids. We have one of the biggest supermodels in the world at this moment. One of the biggest supermodels in the world at this moment comes out of New Hampshire.
Oh, no kidding.
Yes, one of the biggest supermodels at this very moment in our history is a young girl that came right out of the projects of literally Manchester, New Hampshire. Love her family, love her, but it's like we have so many greats that are coming out of New Hampshire. Our disability is great too. They could also be representing us in a much bigger scale and in a much national scale where we could all be literally just thriving.
And I mean, one, I absolutely agree with that. And two, and I'm addressing this to not just Cheryl, the director of the local program here in Hudson, but also to Mark Rogers, her state level counterpart. If y'all want to come on the door is very much open. And I certainly would look forward to having offline conversations with each on how do we make that happen.
Yeah.
Because I don't know much about Manchester, I can only speak from my experience here in Hudson. We make a big deal out of everything that the Alvern High School Athletic Department does.
Yes, we do.
That's all well and good. Why aren't we giving Hudson Special Olympics the same kind of support, the same kind of invitation, the same kind of opportunity
and don't get me wrong,
to showcase their work?
Even in Manchester, we are like, even in like our schools, they are doing a great job of doing like the unified sports, and like they are really trying to, they are truly and utterly trying, like I can only speak for like our schools, but they're really trying to connect these, like the two groups. Like it is amazing to see the support from the students themselves.
Oh, for sure.
How they support their unified sports and how excited they get, what an honor it is for them, like to really see their fellow classmates getting uplifted and being honored in a way where only like truly basketball players get to really feel that.
For sure.
You know, get to feel like they're the man, you know?
Okay, I confess my bias. I am an alum of our high school athletic department here in Hudson, Alvern football, 2008.
Yeah.
But there was something about that, and it comes down to one word, and that's community.
Yeah.
It's a community upon itself, even all these years later.
What if kids in our middle school, in our elementary schools, in our high schools can literally see past other kids' disabilities and see that they are just a kid just like they are, just trying to figure it out and be there for each other as adults, what is stopping us from doing what kids can do?
Oh, for sure. For sure. Okay. And then we get into some of the final housekeeping things here. We're on the platform Blue Sky at ofhisownwords.bluesky.social. We've got show announcements. Okay, maybe not so much this time of year, but reactions to our state legislature, and following reactions to some of the national discussion on autism as well, since that's still very much on the forefront, as we touched on a moment ago. And before I continue, I would also be remiss when I was talking about Hudson Special Olympics a moment ago, I would be very much remiss not to include the unified program over at Alvern as well in that regard.
Yes.
And would very much like to share that the invitation to both groups is very much open.
Yeah, come and show support. Just come and show support.
And then we're on Facebook at Of His Own Words in quotation marks. Again, much like Blue Sky, same overall scope, although we're trying, like I said at the top of the program today, trying to pivot from the legislative side to more of the groups behind the scenes, groups that are, for lack of a better term, in the trenches, educating and trying to share with people how best they can be inclusive. So that's kind of how we started with today's program, for example. And then we're on the Hudson Community TV website under keywords Of His Own Words, and that's primarily the 13, now 14 in-house shows that we've produced here. We're on Linktree, again under the Of His Own Words. We've got show links, social media links. Okay, showing my age here, but link to the email address if people are so inclined. I also like to throw in some Easter eggs, some bonus content, if that's what you want to call it. So, and as the temperatures have warmed up and we've been getting out on the road more and more, trying to include some, quote, on the road stuff as well, where I can squeak it in too. So I'll admit to it, I've got Heath Howard's speech from Rising Stars back in January in Concord on the YouTube page.
Oh, that's awesome.
For one. We're on to, and I know this is kind of a popular one amongst those of us in the advocacy realm, but we're on Substack at Of Its Own Words. Again, much the same update as the others, but it's in a longer form, and a lot of the reactions to what the state legislature has done over the session, what I've had to say on it and shared on there as well as during each show. And then we finally get over to the YouTube, Of Its Own Words -NH, and we've got both the Hudson Community TV shows on there, some of our self-made best of segment, which I'll show y'all here in a minute. Then we get to the link for parts 1 through 7 are on the screen now through YouTube. And we've got part 1, which was the introduction last fall. Lewis's first appearance, the legislative session preview from January. Christian Evans, only appearance on the show in part number 3, overview of how the legislative process is supposed to work. And I preface it that way rather purposely because multiple times this session we saw them ignoring their very own process, to be polite about it. And then we get to story of how House Bill 1316, the Autism Data Privacy Bill, came about. And that was a very enlightening conversation I had with Shauna Hallberg, as a matter of fact, and to what prompted it. And it was actually, for those who don't know or missed the program, that was prompted around what Governor Pritzker did in Illinois with Executive Order 2025-02, acknowledging that people with autism deserve as many rights and the same rights as anyone else, including the right to data privacy in that case. Part number 5, when I did ended up having to pivot into a brief legislative update prior to crossover day. Part number 6, I had Sarah Trzynski in the studio, and that's the one that I was telling you about a little bit earlier, about just because someone has autism doesn't mean that they're any less extraordinary.
Yeah.
It actually means that they could very well be even more unique, I dare say. I appear to have bumped that. Part number 7, what the New Hampshire Autism Council actually is, or excuse me, Council on Autism Spectrum Disorders, if we're using the full name. But that was a very enlightening conversation with your colleague, Dr. Louis Espeto, as he's reminded me on a couple occasions. I still laugh about that, I admit. And then we've got some of the ones where I've just been kind of buying time a little bit here. Parts 8 and 9 actually circle back to what I told you at the beginning of the afternoon about some of the speeches I gave last year on the subject and how it's how some of the misinformation and, well, misrepresentation is very problematic, and not enough people are understanding that. Not enough people grasp that what is being thrown about by certain portions of the current administration is actually quite alarming, because clearly they don't think through what they're actually saying and what it actually means.
Yeah, most definitely.
Then we go to Part 10, which was the timeline look back on the show so far. 11 through 13, should have updated that. Oops. But 11 through 13 touched on the final couple of weeks of the legislative session and where things stood. Then we get into some of the more interesting montage and best of the self-made content, which Heath Howard spoke at the Rising Stars 2026 event at the McAuliffe Planetarium in Concord in January. I happened to be in-house for that. So
yeah, that was actually a great time.
Get to hear him speak there. Then for those who are of the binging mindset in terms of streaming, you got parts 1 through 6, 7 through 9, and then even a best of legislative reactions, which, and Lewis can tell you, I have not been shy about what I've had to say on that, good, bad, and different.
It's okay. I probably share some of the same sentiments.
Oh, I think we're all in agreement there. We had then some of our extended family, if that's what you want to call it. Alejandro Urita, my co-producer and good friend of the show, and helped me get this project off and running. Then just as we rolled into 2026, we had State Representative Lily Foss and Dr. Louis Espeto in-house to talk about what the legislature was doing in regard to autism, which of course turned out they completely ignored anything common sense on that. And I said the quiet part out loud, not sorry. Then we went over the legislative process in part number 3 with State Representative Heath Howard and Kristen Evans. I had Shauna Hallberg in for part number 4, Sarah Jasinski in on part number 6. Part number 7, anybody see a theme there? Dr. Louis Espeto rejoined me for part number 7, and that's when we talked about the Autism Council and what they actually do, which a lot of it I didn't know until this year when it became a subject. And then we go behind the scenes. We've got Director of Community Media Mike Johnson, Matt Guerrero, one of the production coordinators, and counterpart Mike Pylon, one of the other production coordinators. Matt will appreciate this next little bit. Hi, Mike. Co-producers myself and Alejandro Urita. Then, to wrap this up, I've dusted this one off for the first time in a couple of shows just to wrap up a little bit. After watching today's show, if y'all take nothing else away from it, a couple of thoughts. One, the federal government seems to be very determined to misrepresent and misinform what the disability community actually is. They're very determined to misrepresent and misinform what the autism community actually is. I would ask the audience that if you have any doubts in your mind as to how you can help these two communities, and I know they're intertwined, yes, actually hear us out. Actually ask what we need. Actually ask us what our concerns are. And good grief, don't just assume that a one-size-fits-all fix is going to be applicable in all cases.
That is true.
And further, absolutely look back at Of His Own Words -NH, and I urge you to watch all of the other 13 shows, because in those, yes, we have story time, yes, we have our share of laughs, but we also talk about some very serious subjects that are still very much at the forefront, and some of them are actually quite alarming. So what's the old saying, the more you know. Sarah?
Yeah, I would just, one, make sure you come to the Disability Pride Parade in Concord, July
Sure.
18th this year. I also urge everyone to truly get informed, get involved. Please do some research and go to your local legislatives. Go talk to your representatives, talk to your aldermen, and talk to your school board members. Take some time to truly and understand what is going on, not only in our country, but in our own backyard.
Oh, definitely.
And then I encourage you all to do something about it. I encourage you to become a ripple, and I encourage you to speak up. And I also encourage you to truly acclimate yourselves and get involved in your disability community, because we all need each other.
Oh, absolutely. I will wholeheartedly second that and fully acknowledge that I was practicing what I preached this last week, and not just in rallying behind friends of the show, Heath Howard and Sarah Jasinski, as they filed for their run for United States Congress in New Hampshire's 1st Congressional District. I also, in a disconnecting from the discourse for a day, if you will, went up to University of New Hampshire, Durham for the Special Olympic Summer Games this past Saturday, and spent much of a day with one of my very best friends from high school, her parents, and her younger brother.
No.
Just so they know that they have someone in their corner like that.
It's amazing.
And finally, I am very much in awe and appreciation of everybody who's watched this show and had something to weigh in on about it. And just the acknowledgement means a lot. And yes, we're in difficult times, but I'm convinced we can get through it together.
And most definitely.
So, again, finally, to finish off, stay tuned for an announcement about Part 15 in the upcoming weeks. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow us online. And although I can't say too much about it yet, Part 15, we've got something, if everything plays out well, we've got a big name coming up for the next one. So stay tuned for that. And once again, thanks for watching. Good afternoon. Welcome into Oven's Own Word, show number 15. This time I have the privilege of having a very notable guest on the show today. It is my privilege to welcome Congresswoman Goodlander from New Hampshire's 2nd Congressional District to our humble little setup here in Hudson.
This is an amazing place.
Oh, for sure. And today, we pivot today's show from talking about autism and the discussion on the state level, which we have spent quality time on, more to the national angle and an overview of disability rights and autism. For full disclosure, the idea for today's show actually came out of a policy meeting that I had the privilege of joining the Congresswoman for in April of this year in Concord alongside Chase Eagleson of the New Hampshire Council on Developmental Disabilities, who's their policy director, Shauna Hallberg, a fellow disability advocate from the Seacoast, and of course Dr. Louis Espeto, of Executive Director of ABLE New Hampshire, who I have had on the show on 2 separate occasions. So, with all the opening housekeeping out of the way, what role does the U.S. Congress have in the autism discussion in regard to data privacy and the overall disability rights?
Well, first, Ian, thank you for having me on the show. I've been looking forward to this since you first told me about the show. And I think, as you said a moment ago, you were in single digits on the number of episodes. So I'm really honored to be part of this conversation with you. And you know, when I think about the role that Congress plays, it's 3 really big lines of effort. And I keep my Constitution with me everywhere I go because
of course.
in my work these days, it's very useful. And it really, at the end of the day, Article 1 is a job description. It tells us what Congress's responsibilities are. It also tells us what the rights of the American people are. And when I think about the 3 core pieces of our job description, number 1 is that we write the laws, the civil rights laws, the education laws, that really go to the heart of vindicating the promise of our Constitution, of a government of, by, and for the people that respects the rights of everybody. And when I think about what the work Congress has done, especially in the last half century, in the last 50 years, you know, from 1973 and the Rehabilitation Act, Section 504, being the starting point where we said for the first time as a federal government, anybody who receives federal funding cannot discriminate against people with disabilities. Otherwise, we shut down those funding streams. And that's an important tool. That's a through line in how we have enforced these basic protections, which to me are fundamental protections that trace their roots right back to the Declaration of Independence and to the core idea of self-government. So from the Rehabilitation Act to the Americans with Disabilities Act in 1990, and we just marked the anniversary this past Sunday.
Yes,
you know,
as a matter of fact.
You know, it was Senator Bob Dole who served our country in the Second World War, who came home with disabilities that changed the way that he thought about the law. And he was it's always been a bipartisan effort to make our laws more perfect. So, you know, I think too, the ADA really being the core of it, but we'll come, I'm sure, to the Olmstead decision.
I was just getting ready to say some of these laws that you've brought up. Just in our opening question, we'll touch upon it a little bit further here, further down the list, certainly. And most recently, the Olmstead decision from 1999 and the June 18th Department of Justice memo stating that the community integration provisions of both Olmstead and Section 504 being optional, and certainly we can get into that a little bit later on, and certainly I'd like to hear your takeaways on that. Okay, so I know this was a big thing certainly last year in regard to Secretary Kennedy's autism registry. How do we maintain data privacy for the autistic and disabled community in the face of both AI and in the face of an administration who is very apparently historically illiterate? Again, the example I gave was the autism registry last spring, certainly.
and the analogies are the darkest episodes in
Yes.
human history. This was a tool that the Nazi regime used in the Holocaust. And
for sure.
It's, this has given rise to, this has concerned everybody who thinks about the basic right to privacy in the Fourth Amendment, and equally important, the 14th Amendment and equal protection.
Oh, definitely.
So, alongside writing the laws and appropriating money, Congress exercises oversight, and this is really important to the basic accountability of how any government works. And when it comes to this registry, this is an idea that was thrown out. The word itself was not used directly, but the whole infrastructure, has been commandeered. And one thing I can tell you for sure is Congress appropriates, we have the power of the purse, we appropriate
Oh,
money.
definitely, yeah.
And we will make it crystal clear that not a dollar, not a cent, not a penny of taxpayer dollars should go towards creating this kind of registry, which to me upends the most basic ideas that make us who we are as Americans. We are a people who believe in privacy and who believe in equal protection under the law. And the idea that the government would commandeer your own personal medical records and create this kind of registry, I mean, it is, we've seen this in history, and these are the darkest moments in history.
Oh, for sure.
And so we will make sure that not a dollar can be put towards this. Now, the Government Accountability Office is one of my most important partners in government, and they have been closely following this because part of what happened here, the idea of a registry came from a database and a system that existed to help advance Alzheimer's research. And this basic infrastructure is what the Secretary of Health and Human Services had been eyeing to use. Already, the Government Accountability Office had said that this was wrought with really big transparency problems, accountability problems. They had already raised the alarm on this way back in 2024, which actually was not that long ago, but seems like a lifetime ago.
It feels like a long time ago, yeah.
April seems like a lifetime ago.
Yeah, and to that end, and a quick fourth wall break, that was one of our first discussions at an event in Manchester, was in regard to the autism registry from last spring.
Right. Well, what I can tell you is we will be laser focused on this because this is, the arguments for it are really not there.
Oh yeah,
and
definitely.
The arguments against it are very serious and go to some of the most core concerns that a citizen could ever raise about their government.
Very definitely, and for those keeping track at home, Alejandro and I talked about this a little bit in brief in our very first show last fall. Then in January, myself, State Representative Voss from Manchester, and Dr. Louis Espeto, who we touched on at the top, talked about this also. And that's been a core message that I've been trying to raise throughout the show, and keeping it on the forefront of people's minds.
Yes.
And keeping it on the forefront that as much as they're trying to insist it's necessary, and by that I mean federal DHHS and Secretary Kennedy, historically it's dangerous.
It is dangerous.
Historically it's a slippery slope. And based on what we've seen in the last year and a half, I have no doubt that they would misuse any said registry.
And to the extent that the argument is about research and about improving interventions, improving diagnoses, improving healthcare, this is all happening in the context where we've seen the biggest cuts to Medicaid in healthcare in American history, and the biggest and most senseless cuts to research in American history.
Definitely.
But what I'd say is, there has always been, and there will continue to be, strong bipartisan support for the research that we all want to see carried out. We've been America has led the world in autism research, and that requires investments, and those investments are ones that have always had bipartisan support. A registry is not necessary to any of this.
Certainly not.
And it introduces dangers that should shock the conscience of every American.
Oh, very definitely. And for those who are interested in the more in-depth context of what I've had to say on this, I would direct them to shows 8 and 9 from April, where I both addressed the speeches that I gave at events in Concord last year, and then briefly touched upon some of the discussion from over the winter as well. Now, that being said, we now get into more of the policy-specific side of the discussion. And a little bit of context for a moment here. Our state legislature here in New Hampshire attempted to enshrine fundamental protection from Section 504 into state law this last session in House Bill 1593. Unfortunately, the House Republicans refused to act upon it before crossover day in March, so it didn't get as far as it could have, but it ties into our next question in how do we maintain disability rights in an era of an administration that has no respect for the existing laws such as ADA and Section 504 of the, and I'm going to get it wrong here, but
The Rehabilitation Act, yeah.
Thank you. How do we maintain all of that on a federal level? Or is it going to be a case where the states are going to have to do it themselves, and we're already seeing cracks beginning to show state by state in terms of recognizing that those are the law of the land still?
Right. Well, the first thing I'd say is one of the reasons I'm so grateful to you, Ian, for having this show. You know, there's a nationwide campaign, Nothing About Us Without Us.
Okay.
That people in the autism community and disability advocates across the board are the most important voices, I believe, in this fight right now. We need to hear your voices because you know better than anyone what this means, what these protections mean, and what they've meant for your life.
Sure.
And you know, we've both grown up in a country where in the last 50 years we've made the laws more perfect. You know, New Hampshire in many ways has led the way. You know, in 1991, when we were the first state in the nation to shut down the Laconia State School and to end one of the darkest chapters in our state's history. But the first thing I'd say is your voice and advocacy and stories really matter because we still have a whole lot of educating to do and still have so many barriers to remove. What I'd say is it is going to take localities and states and people of good faith at every level of government. I've always believed governing is a team sport. But when you have a major player, and in the case of enforcing our civil rights laws, the Department of Justice, the U.S. Department of Justice, has always been on the forefront of that effort. You know, it was a department that was really created to enforce the 14th and 15th Amendments to our Constitution, you know, the equal protection promise of the 14th Amendment. And I served for years in that department. It was one of the most extraordinary places because what you had then was a group of nonpartisan, patriotic public servants who woke up every day and tried to make America a more perfect union. And you know, in 2014, we saw a federal civil rights consent decree here in New Hampshire that made our laws and made our state a better place. And that was 2014. And the Department of Justice today is really a shadow of its former self. And to me, one of the most heartbreaking expressions of that is this lengthy opinion, which I brought with me because although it's boring.
We're just about to get into that discussion a little bit here. And just a quick side note, and I mentioned House Bill 1593 from the past state legislative session. House Bill 1316 is another one that certainly bared watching and continues to bear watching, because that was modeled from what Governor Pritzker of Illinois did with his Executive Order 2025-02 back last May in regard to enshrining certain protections, certain rights for people with autism. Now, getting to, I know we've touched on it a couple of times, and getting to the elephant in the room of sorts, and for those who aren't as well connected as the Congresswoman and myself, back on June the 18th, the U.S. Department of Justice issued a memo in regard to the Olmstead decision of 1999, and also the community integration provisions of Section 504, stating that they were both optional and that they would no longer be enforcing them as written. In a last-minute decision, the previous questions we have were drawn up in May. And the Congresswoman knows, in her just off-camera, very talented staffer, Ashley, and I have all been in conversation about the decision to include this next question was made during this past weekend. With the current events and recent DOJ memo regarding Olmstead in Section 504, is there a way we can, number one, counter it? And number two, what does it all mean for the average person?
Yeah. Well, let me start with your second question, because,
Please.
So Congress writes the laws, the Supreme Court interprets them. And, we wrote in 1973 and 1990 these two critical pillars of civil rights protections for people with disabilities. And in 1999, the Supreme Court issued a decision that really reaffirmed what Congress was trying to do, which was to say that people with disabilities have got to be integrated into the community. They can't be separated. And we learn the lessons of what that looks like when we have an institutionalized first approach to governing, to self-government. I mean, it's the Laconia State School chapter of our state's history is one of the darkest of all time. So the Supreme Court reaffirmed what Congress said. It really held it up to say that there is a mandate to integrate people, to allow them to get home and community-based care, and to be a part of the community. And there's really no more American idea than that. Now, the Supreme Court got constitutional power. The Office of Legal Counsel, this memo you mentioned from the month of June of this year. One thing to say is, these are not judges. They are employees, bureaucrats within the Department of Justice who write memos that have no force of law. What they do is make clear how the Department of Justice is going to use its resources. So, the Department of Justice is not going to be enforcing the law in the way that I believe deeply Congress has said the law should be enforced. And that the practical impact on that for New Hampshire, for the town of Hudson, is that we're not going to see the kind of law enforcement that we have for the last 50 years. And that's a huge loss to this town, to our state, to our country, because that's why the Department of Justice was created. But the fact is, bureaucrats in the Department of Justice cannot change the laws that Congress has written. They cannot undo the decisions that the Supreme Court hands down. And that's a fact, and we should not lose sight of that, because
Exactly.
I know from my own experience that oftentimes bureaucrats within the Department of Justice think they have a lot more power than they actually do. So this is a memo that will make law enforcement less effective. And that's unfortunate, but that is fixable in the days ahead. I think it's really on us in Congress. And part of what my experience, I worked in the courts, there are very few people who think about how we can make our laws better based on court decisions. But I think every court decision, and frankly every OLC opinion, Office of Legal Counsel memo, gives us an opportunity to make the laws better and clearer, and that's exactly what we should do.
Sure.
And that's what we've done throughout our history on a bipartisan basis. So that's what I'm working to do in Congress on your behalf.
Indeed. And I mean, I know we couldn't have foreseen this, because again, quick fourth wall break, we were originally intending to do the segment back closer to Memorial Day this year. And where this came out in the time between Memorial Day and the time of this recording, it was something that I felt strongly enough that we should discuss.
And I'm glad you did, because we should all be focused on it. But what's one of the challenges of this moment, when I think about the tectonic shifts just in the last year, we've seen nearly $1 trillion in cuts to healthcare, which go directly to home and community-based care. It's putting the whole system in peril. It's raising everybody's healthcare costs.
Sure.
But these are the biggest cuts in American history, alongside a massive restructuring, and a disintegration of the Department of Education. So we talk about IDEA and Congress's obligation to fully fund. They're moving around who has authority and oversight over special education in this country, and that matters for every taxpayer in this town.
And I know we're a little bit on a schedule here, so I'll just mention it in brief, because I've talked about it previously. I know Nashua, just over the river from here, from where we sit today, has been grappling with that very question about how do they organize their special education structure?
Right.
And how do they do it cost effectively, where they haven't been getting nearly as much funding either from a federal sense or even from a state sense. And
that's right.
that was certainly a hot button topic back in the spring.
And I think it will continue to be, because this is, a big piece of this. It's how we've chosen to fund education in the state, and as a state. But the part of it that I'm focused on is Congress has chronically failed to meet our own commitments when it comes to funding special education in this country. And we've got a bill called the IDEA Full Funding Act. I hear about it everywhere I go. I was in Pelham the other day, in Nashua the other day. This is a bill that would dramatically reduce property taxes in New Hampshire, because someone has to pay, and right now the entire burden is being felt by hardworking families, in part because Congress has not lived up to its obligations. So when I look at the world and the money that we're spending, and where it could go, to me, this is a no-brainer.
Yeah, and as I've mentioned a couple of times on the program previously, House Bill 1563 from this last legislative session readjusted the formula special education funding, or supportive education funding formula here in the state of New Hampshire. Do I believe it's going to fix it overnight? Probably not. And I said that at more length at the time. But I believe that that's what we've got to be doing too, and looking at ways to make small fixings, small adjustments to what we've been dealt.
Yeah.
As well as looking at the big picture at the same time.
Amen.
Again, I know we're a little bit on a schedule, so just as we get into final thoughts here, and is there anything that you would want the audience to take away or remember about today's program? And of course, I'll yield to the Congresswoman first, and then I'll share my thoughts.
Well, I'm curious what you would say.
Well, normally I'd have something witty scripted here, but to be at part number 15 and have a seated member of Congress in the Hudson Community TV studio, I consider that to be an accomplishment number one. And I think what we've discussed today even with it being an overview and a very important conversation, a very important reminder of why we're doing this, each in our own respect, each within our own lane, and drawing attention to the fact that it's not just about the negativity, it's not just about the sound bites that we're hearing from the administration. There is reason for hope, there is reason for optimism, but it does not come without very dedicated, very hard work, and the Congresswoman's been an excellent example of time and time again. And it's still sinking in that I'm 15 shows into what was going to originally be a 2-part segment about both the autism registry from last spring and then a little bit about our state legislature and just the privilege of literally the who's who that I've been able to have in studio with me over this journey so far. It's certainly been incredible to think about, and certainly I was reflecting on that on the way over today. And by far, this is, I'll say it if Mike and Matt won't, this has been the biggest accomplishment we've had so far for the show, and certainly the most notable guest we've had to date.
Well, there's no place I'd rather be because what you said really resonates with me because I am optimistic about our country. I mean, we are facing massive challenges. People are feeling a whole lot of pain. There's a lot of chaos. There's a lot of corruption. And there's a lot of headwinds that go directly to the work that has taken us on an arc of progress
Sure.
for the last 50 years. But the thing that I remember, the Declaration of Independence calls the basic truth that all people are created equal. It's called a self-evident truth. But the fact is that even the most fundamental American ideas, the most self-evident truths, are ones that we've got to spend our lives working towards. And to me, what gives me hope is that at the end of the day, what is self-government all about? It's about people working together. It's about people, in the title of your show, Of His Own Words, it's about people speaking their own truths.
I can't take credit for the title. That's my co-producer Alejandro, who gave it that title at the beginning of our very first show back in November, and I've kind of taken the idea and run with it.
It's beautiful, and you certainly have run with it, and I hope you continue to, because this is Hudson Community TV plays such an important role, and I'm grateful to you for bringing me to these studios because I've been wanting to come here for a long time.
For sure.
In this moment when there's so much noise, there's so much chaos, we got to get back to the basics of really.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Thinking through, what are we trying to accomplish together, and what is this thing we call self-government really all about? And to me, it's about, and what I love about my job is I get to advocate and to represent and to fight for you and for this town that I love so much, and the state I love so much. And we've got a lot of work to do. But the best ideas I get come directly from people speaking in their own words about their own lives and
definitely.
the challenges and opportunities they see. So,
and to that end, goodness knows that we've had that opportunity like 4 different times, 5 different times over the last year, and certainly it's a reminder of why I took this project on, why I've been doing this for 15 shows in not even a full year yet. It seems hard to believe it, that we're already talking that kind of number. I mean, I've got a whole list here of people that I can thank, but I'll keep it brief, I promise. All the way from My co-producer Alejandro Urita, who debuted with me on the first show, Dr. Louis Espeto, who's appeared on the show twice, State Representative Lily Foss, Hillsborough District 41 out of Manchester, State Representative Heath Howard of the Stratford County area, Kristen Evans from Able, New Hampshire, Shauna Hallberg, Lewis again, Sarah Georgians, the community organizer with Able, and then behind the scenes, Chris, who's on one of the cameras for Hudson Community TV, just off screen. Matt, again, on one of the cameras. Mike Johnson back in the production booth making us sound so awesome. Check us out on, of his own words, on Blue Sky, Facebook, Hudson Community TV website, Linktree, Substack, and YouTube. I believe I've hit
You got them all
upon
covered.
everything. Also, I'm looking forward to not just today's segment going on online, but we've also got our first on location segment coming out soon, of which I had the privilege of going to the Disability Pride Festival in
Wonderful.
Concord a few weeks back.
Yeah.
So I'd like to thank Louis Espeto for that invitation. And we'll have not just today's show, but part 16 already coming up very soon. Plus we'll have a bonus segment with, weather permitting, we're going to have a bonus segment with the Special Olympics Heroes Cup out at Nashua.
And Holman
coming up
Stadium. That's
soon.
wonderful.
I'll be headed out that way on Friday. So again,
But
check
can
us
I
out.
ask you one more question?
Please.
Do you wear the New Hampshire tartan for every episode? Because I just love it.
I actually have not worn it for every episode, but I felt it was appropriate
It's
for
wonderful.
today. Again, certainly been an honor and a privilege to finally get this together,
Thank you.
Congresswoman. So sincerely, thank you.
Thank you, Ian.
And those at home, thank you for watching.